Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayana, unto Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nashtaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 5, text number 13. Since I am here alone, so I think you'll not be able to repeat, but I'll just chant the full verse and you can chant it after me. Atho Mahabhag Bhavanamoghdrak Suchishrava Satyarato Dhrita Brata Urukramasya Bandha Muktaye Samadhinanu Smaratad Vicheshtitam. Atho Mahabhag Bhavanamoghdrak Suchishrava Satyarato Dhrita Brata Urukramasya Samadhinanu Smaratad Vicheshtitam. Atho Mahabhaga Bhavan Mamoghdrak Suchishrava Satyarato Dhrita Brataha Urukramasya Bandhamuktaye Samadhinanu Smaratad Vicheshtitam.
अथो महाभाग भवानमोघदृक्
अथो महाभाग भवानमोघदृक्
शुचिश्रवा सत्य रतो धृतव्रताः
शुचिश्रवा.
It's not audible at all.
अथो महाभाग भवानमोघदृक् शुचिश्रवाः सत्यरतो धृतव्रतः रुक्रमस्याखिलबन्धं मुक्तये समाधिना नुस्मर तद्विचेष्टितम्.
अतो महाभाग भवान अमोघदृक् शुचिश्रव सत्यरतो धृतव्रताः उरुक्रमस्याखिलाबन्धमुक्तये समाधिना नु स्मरतद्विचेष्टिताम्.
Anybody else?
Hey Krishna Prabhu.
Yes, go ahead, Subhro.
अतो महाभागभवानमोघदृक्
अथो महाभागभवानमोघद्र
शुचिश्रवाः सत्यरतो धृतव्रताः
शुचिश्रवा
शुचिश्रवा
सत्यरतो धृतव्रतः
गुरुक्रमस्याखिलबन्धमुक्तये
गुरुक्रमस्याखिलबन्धमुक्तये
समाधिनानुस्मरतद्विचेष्टितम्
समाधिनानुस्मर्तद्विचेष्टितम्
अथो महाभागभावनमोत्रक
अथो महाभागभवानमोघद्र
शुचिश्रवा सत्यरतो धृतव्रतः
शुचिश्रवा सत्यरतो धृतव्रतः
उरुक्रमशिखिलबन्धमुक्ते
उरुक्रमस्याखिलबन्धमुक्तये
समाधिनानुस्मर्तद्विचेष्टितम्
समाधिनानुस्मर्तद्विचेष्टितम्
Anybody else? Nobody? No Matajis?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. I already read, right?
Yeah.
Yes, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Yeah.
Ato Mahabhaga Bhavanamoghadrak
Ato Mahabhagabhavanamoghdra
Shuchi Shrava Satyarato Drutavrataha
शुचिश्रवा सत्यरतो धृतव्रतः
Guru Kramasya Kilabandha Muktaye
उरुक्रमस्य किलबन्धमुक्तये
Samadhinanusmaratadvicheshtitam.
समाधिनानुस्मरतद्विचेष्टितम्. Anybody else or okay, let's start with the synonyms. Atho, therefore, Mahabhaga, highly fortunate, Bhavan, yourself, Amoghadrak, the perfect seer, Suchi, spotless, Shravaha, famous, Satyarataha, having taken the vow of truthfulness, Dhritabhrataha, fixed in spiritual qualities, Uru Kramasya, of the one who performs supernatural activities, God, Akhila, universal, Bandha, bondage, Muktaye, for liberation from, Samadhina, by trance, Anusmara, think repeatedly and then describe them, Tad Vichashtitam, Tat Vichashtitam, various pastimes of the Lord. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. O Vyasadev, your vision is completely perfect. Your good fame is spotless. You are firm in vow and situated in truthfulness. And thus you can think of the pastimes of the Lord in trance for the liberation of the people in general from all material bondage. Translation with repetition, you can repeat. O Vyasadev,
O Vyasadev,
your vision is completely perfect.
your vision is completely perfect.
Your good fame is spotless.
Your good fame is spotless.
You are firm in vow and situated in truthfulness.
You are firm in vow and situated in truthfulness.
And thus you can think of the pastimes of the Lord
And thus you can think of the pastimes of the Lord
in trance for the liberation of the people
in trance for the liberation of the people
in general
in general
from all material bondage.
from all material bondage.
Purport by Srila Prabhupada. People in general have a taste for literatures by instinct. They want to hear and read from the authorities something about the unknown. But their taste is exploited by unfortunate literatures which are full of subject matter for satisfaction of the material senses. Such literatures contain different kinds of mundane poems and philosophical speculations, more or less under the influence of Maya, ending in sense gratification. These literatures, although worthless in the true sense of the term, are variously decorated to attract the attention of the less intelligent men. Thus, the attracted living entities are more and more entangled in material bondage without hope of liberation for thousands and thousands of generations. Sri Narada Rishi, being the best amongst the Vaishnavas, is compassionate towards such unfortunate victims of worthless literatures. And thus he advises Sri Vyasadeva to compose transcendental literature which is not only attractive but can also actually bring liberation from all kinds of bondage. Srila Vyasadeva or his representatives are qualified because they are rightly trained to see things in true perspective. Srila Vyasadeva and his representatives are pure in thought due to their spiritual enlightenment, fixed in their vows due to their devotional service, and determined to deliver the fallen souls, rotting in material activities. The fallen souls are very eager to receive novel informations every day, and the transcendentalists like Vyasadeva or Narad can supply such eager people in general with unlimited news from the spiritual world. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that the material world is only a part of the whole creation, and that this earth is only a fragment of the whole material world. There are thousands and thousands of literary men all over the world, and they have created many, many thousands of literary works for the information of the people in general for thousands and thousands of years. Unfortunately, none of them have brought peace and tranquility on the earth. This is due to a spiritual vacuum in those literatures. Therefore, the Vedic literatures, especially the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, are specifically recommended to suffering humanity to bring about the desired effect of liberation from the pangs of material civilization, which is eating the vital part of human energy. The Bhagavad Gita is the spoken message of the Lord Himself, recorded by Vyasadeva, and the Srimad Bhagavatam is the transcendental narration of the activities of the same Lord Krishna, which alone can satisfy the hankering desires of the living being for eternal peace and liberation from miseries. Srimad Bhagavatam, therefore, is meant for all living beings all over the universe for total liberation from all kinds of material bondage. Such transcendental narrations of the pastimes of the Lord can be described only by liberated souls like Vyasadeva and his bona fide representatives who are completely merged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Only to such devotees do the pastimes of the Lord and their transcendental nature become automatically manifest by dint of devotional service. No one else can either know or describe the acts of the Lord, even if they speculate on the subject for many, many years. The descriptions of the Bhagavatam are so precise and accurate that whatever has been predicted in this great literature about 5,000 years ago is now exactly happening. Therefore, the vision of the author comprehends past, present, and future. Such liberated persons as Vyasadeva are perfect not only by the power of vision and wisdom, but also in oral reception. in thinking, feeling, and all other sense activities. A liberated person possesses perfect senses, and with perfect senses only can one serve the sense proprietor Rishikesha, Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. Srimad Bhagavatam, therefore, is the perfect description of the all perfect personality of Godhead by the all perfect personality Srila Vyasadeva, the compiler of the Vedas. Thus ends the wonderful transcendental Bhaktivedanta purport. Omagyanatimirandhasya Gyananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Am I audible?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes,
Hare-
Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji.
So these are very wonderful verses from Srimad Bhagavatam, and as we are discussing this conversation between Narad and Vyasadeva, there are some interesting turns, and there are some. So these turns are very interesting because all of a sudden, till now, up till this verse, we've been seeing that Narad Muni blaming Vyasadeva. He was criticizing for having written some literatures which are not worthy. And now this verse is very different from what he has spoken earlier because he is glorifying Vyasadeva again. And why is he doing? What is the purpose of Narad Muni's glorifying Vyasadeva? And what exactly he is aiming at in this verse, we will see. We'll understand this a little more. So let's see the verse one more time. Atho Mahabhaga Bhavan Amobhadra Suchishrava Satyarato Dritabrataha Urukramasya Khilabandha Muktaye Samadhinanusmaratadvicheshtitam. Actually, Bhagavatam is so wonderful and so poetically composed that sometimes the beauty of Bhagavatam is hidden. I mean, we don't pay attention, then we will miss out. Especially this verse that we are reading, the verse that we are discussing today. It's a very wonderful verse, and those words which are chosen by Narad Muni are very deep and profound in their meanings. And let's try to understand what are these words and what are these words. So he is addressing here, if you see my cursor, the first word that he's using here to Vyasadeva is Mahabhaga. You are the most fortunate. Now, in our colloquial terms, in our day-to-day understanding, we consider someone as fortunate who wins some lottery, gets something unexpected. But a fortunate soul in the spiritual parlance means something else. And what does that mean? We will see why Vyasadeva is addressed as Mahabhaga. Atho Mahabhaga Bhavan. Bhavan is addressing someone with great respect and reverence. Your good self is very fortunate, extremely fortunate. Atho Mahabhaga Bhavan Amoghadrik Suchishrava Satyarata Dritabrataha. Amoghadrik. Amoghadrik actually means a person who has got a purified vision. Drik, the word drik comes from the root, same root as darshan. So the same root word is used. Drik is the vision. Amogha is spotless. Amogha drik. In Tamil, they use this, acharyas who are coming in Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya as seers. So seers is, I used to think probably it's a Tamil word or something, but it's actually the English word, seers. They are the seer of the absolute truth. Like we say Tattvadarshi. Something similar to that. Amoghadrik. If you have heard this Madhu Pandit Prabhu's classes on soulful japa, there he talks about Drik Drishya Darshan. Drik Drishya Darshan means the Supreme Lord who's seeing us, our true self. Actually, there is a mood in which the deities, when we are standing in front of them, we should have darshan. We should allow the Lord to see us with all our deformities, with all our irregularities, with all our lacunae, with all our flaws. And because in front of the Lord, there's nothing that you can hide. So there is a Drik Drishya Darshan. There is a science or a philosophy of Drik and Drishya. So vision and whom you are seeing, the seen, the seer, the seen and the seen, the process. So anyway, that same word Amoghadrik. So Narada Muni is addressing Vyasadeva as Mahabhaga, Amoghadrik, Suchi Shravaha. These are all beautiful words and very profound in their meanings. And we will try to understand from the purport what Prabhupada is explaining about these words. Shrava is Shravana. Suchi is purified. So whose hearing is purified. Suchi Shrava. Satyarato, who's fixed in truth. Dritabrata, who's determined. Urukramasya khilabandha muktaye. Samadhinanusmaratad vicheshtikam. Urukrama. Uru refers to something very uncommon, extraordinary. And krama refers to activities. Urukramasya akhilabandha muktaye. Akhilabandha muktaye is something which frees one from this bondage of material activities, gives liberation. Guru Kramasya Khilabandha Muktaye. What are those things which gives liberation? We will see. Samadhinanu Smaratad Vicheshtitam. Samadhinanu Smara. Get into that trance and remember those pastimes. Remember those Tad Vicheshtitam, pastimes of the Lord. Remember that. Because those pastimes of the Lord, which is Urukrama Akhilabandha Muktaye, the pastimes of the Lord, another name of the Lord is Urukrama, who does extraordinary activities. Akhilabandha Muktaye, actually it frees one from all kinds of material bondage. So the translation of this verse is, O Vyasadeva, your vision is completely perfect. Amoghadrik, your good fame is spotless. Mahabhaga. And Suchishrava, you are firm in vow, Satyarato and Dritabrataha, and situated in truthfulness. So it is, the order is changed. Firm in vow is Dritabrataha, and you are situated in truthfulness is Satyaratoho. And thus you can think of the pastimes of the Lord in trance, Samadhina Anusmara. You can think, Anusmara is to think. In trance, Samadhina, the pastimes of the Lord in trance for the liberation of the people in general from all material bondage. Akhila Bandha Muktaye, Urukramasya Akhila Bandha Muktaye. This is the verse. Now, the time that we have together, let's understand this verse and see how we can apply this in our life and what are some of the important lessons that Prabhupada is trying to impart through the purport. So to understand this verse more closely, the first thing that we have to see in this verse is the first word of the verse, Atho. Atho Mahabhaga Bhavan Amoghadrak. Now the word Atho in Sanskrit means therefore. So when we use the word Atho or Athaha, we are using therefore. That means there is something which has been spoken before. And that context is important to know to understand this present verse. Because the verse starts with therefore, O most fortunate one, Mahabhaga, O you, the most fortunate one, who is Amoghadrak Suchishrava Satyarato Dritabrataha, Urukramasya Khilabandha Muktaye Samadhinanu Smaratad Vicheshtikam. So what is that Atho? What is that therefore that Narada Muni is talking about? To know that, we need to know a little more the previous verses, the first three verses, or the two verses or three verses before this verse. Just to refresh your memory, because we have been doing this weekly and we get caught up with so many things, but these are all great revelations. And these revelations can help us advance in our spiritual life tremendously if we pay attention. So here, just 2 or 3 verses before we had read this verse, Nayat Vachas Chitra Padam Harer Yasho, Jagat Pavitram Pragranita Karhichit, Tad Vayasam Tirtham Musanti Manasa, Nayatra Hamsa Niramanti Usikshaya. Narad Muni was condemning all those literatures which are written by Vyasadeva or which are available in market in general as Vayasam Tirtham, as a place of pilgrimage for crows. Which literatures he was condemning? Which is that Vayasam Tirtham? Nayad Vachas Chitra Padam Harer Yasho. So those literatures which are not talking about Harer Yasho, the spotless glories, the activities of the Lord, the fame of the Lord, if it is not describing, even though it is beautifully composed, Chitra Padam, Nayad Vachas is that words or those, if those words are not describing the glories of the Supreme Lord, even if it is poetically composed in the best of the meters, is Vayasam Tirtham, because Harer Yasho, when we describe the glories of the Lord, Jagat Pavitram Pragranita Karhichit. Jagat Pavitram means these words of the glories of the words, the glories of the Lord, these words can purify the entire universe. Jagat Pavitram Pragranita Karhichit. Tadvayasam Tirtham Usanti Manasa Nayatra Hamsa Niramanti Usikshaya. So we had seen this verse earlier. These are the literatures which doesn't talk about Krishna's glory, even though they are perfectly composed, are considered to be the pilgrimage for crows by the Usikshaya, by the transcendentalists, by the spiritualists. So there are 2 classes of men, the swan class and the crow class. The crow class, where they go for pilgrimage or where they enjoy, are literatures which doesn't talk about the glories of the Lord, and they are composed in a beautiful manner to attract, but then they are of no use, and the transcendentalists do not take pleasure in that. So it is a negative thing. And then the next verse, Narad Muni says, Tadvag Visargo Janatagha Viplava, Yasmin Pratishlokam Abadhavatyapi, Namani Anantasya Yashonkitani, Shunvanti Gayanti Grinanti Sadhava. Tadvag, this verse actually is spoken by Srila Prabhupada he mentions this in the introduction of Bhagavatam as well. Tadvag Visargo Janatagha Viplava. So the words of Srimad Bhagavatam, Tadvaga Visargo Janatagha Viplava, can bring a revolution in the sinful lives of Tadvaga Visargo Janatagha Viplava, Janatagha, all the sinful lives, the sinful people in this material world who are engaged in sinful activities can bring a revolution, these words. Yasmin Pratislokam Abadhavati Api, even if Api is although each verse is spoken, maybe there is some mistake in terms of the poetic composition, which is not true. But even if it is, Yasmin Pratislokam Abadhavati, improperly composed, still it can bring a revolution in the lives of impious lives of general human beings, because Namani Anantasya Yasho Ankitani Yat Shunvanti Gayanti Grinanti Sadhavaha. Namani Anantasya Yasho Ankitani, because this literature is glorifying Anantasya, the Supreme Lord's infinite transcendental pastimes and activities and his names. And that, because of that, even if it is improperly composed, it can bring a revolution in the sinful lives of general human beings. That's why the sadhavas, the devotees, the Shrinvanti, they hear it, Gayanti, they glorify, they speak about it, and Grananti, they remember it also. So the translation is, on the other hand, that literature which is full of descriptions of the transcendental glories of the name, fame, forms, pastimes, etc., of the unlimited Supreme Lord is a different creation, full of transcendental words, directed towards bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. Such transcendental literatures, even though imperfectly composed, are heard, sung, and accepted by purified men who are thoroughly honest. Sadhavaha. So we spoke about the 10th verse, which speaks about the literatures which is to be rejected, which is the pilgrimage for the crow-like people, which talks about generally sense gratification, but presented in a very attractive manner. And this verse talks about, even though the Srimad Bhagavatam may be improperly composed, may not have all the meters and poetically composed. Still, it can bring revolution in the sinful lives of these human beings, because it is talking about the unlimited glories of the Supreme Lord, His name, fame, forms, pastimes, etc. The next verse, which was the verse discussed in the last class, doesn't restrict one to just the literatures, because 10th verse was talking about the literatures to be rejected, and 11th verse is talking about the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam. 12th verse actually goes a step further, and the verse says, Naiskarmyam api achyuta bhava varjitam nasobhate jnanam alam niranjanam kutah punas saswat abhadram ishware nachapitam karmam yadapi akaranam. Why this is not coming? Okay. Nachapitam karma yadapi akaranam. Actually, this verse, this is going further beyond those literatures and talks about Naiskarmyam api achyuta bhava varjitam nasobhate jnanam alam niranjanam. Naiskarmyam is actually talking about self-realization. That knowledge which can give self-realization, alam niranjanam, and which is free from all material activities, tinges of material activities, na sobhate. Still they are not glorified. Na sobhate. Sobhate is, what is the exact word Prabhupada uses? Sobhate is looks well. Okay. So it is not sobhate. Sobha is like, which is glorified. So na sobhate, it does not look well. Those words which can give us that knowledge which can give us self-realization is not glorified, is not really glorious if it is achyuta bhava varjitam. If it doesn't talk about the Supreme Lord's activities or His glories. Api achyuta bhava varjitam, if it is free from, if it is devoid of that, then na sobhate, even if it is knowledge which can give us liberation, it's not really beautiful. If that knowledge which can give us liberation itself is not beautiful, what to speak about fruitive activities, which is temporary, which is painful? Kutah punah saswat abhadram ishware nacharpitam karma yad api akaranam. What to speak about the fruitive activities which is temporary and which is naturally painful? So he's talking not just the words, the literatures, but here he's talking about the activities also. If the activities are devoid of devotional service, if the knowledge which can lead to self-realization is devoid of achyuta bhava varjitam, knowledge of self-realization, even though free from all material affinity, does not look well if devoid of a conception of the infallible God. If God is missing in that, the personal form of the Lord is missing, then these are all useless. These are not, there is no, it is a comparison of Srimad Bhagavatam's description, where it's not like, self-realization is bad or has to be condemned, but in comparison, if it is achyuta bhava varjitam, nasobhate, it doesn't look well. So then what to talk about fruitive activities? So fruitive activities are condemned. Then the jnana, which can lead to liberation without achyuta bhava, is also condemned. This was the previous verse. Now in the today's verse, so that's why, bringing back the context, atho. So that is why, having spoken these 3 verses before this, Narad Muni is saying that, now that there are some literatures which doesn't talk about the glories of the Lord are Vayasam Tirtham, are the pilgrimage for the crows. And there is the other side, that Bhaga Visargo Janataga Viplavo. If the literature is talking about the unlimited glories of the Lord, the forms, pastimes, and all these things, then can bring a revolution in the sinful lives of the people. So you must speak, glorify, and talk about those literature. And then in the 3rd verse, in the previous verse, he's telling that even the jnana, which can lead to self-realization, but without achyuta bhavam, has to be condemned, has to be rejected. And the activities which is devoid, which is not having devotional service, what to talk about then? There is no comparison. Actually, it is painful, it is temporary, and one should not be engaged in that. And then Narad Muni is telling in this verse, atho, O Vedavyas, therefore, hence, atho mahabhaga bhavan amoghadrik, suchi shrava satya rato dhrita brataha, Urukramasya khilabandha muktaye samadhinanu smaratad vicheshtakam. He's saying, therefore, O Vyasadev, now write something which can actually Urukramasya khilabandha muktaye. Urukramasya khila bandha muktaye. These words, this line is very, very important. He's telling, when we are describing the activities, the pastimes of the Lord, Urukramasya akhila bandha muktaye, it can free us from all kinds of material bondage. And you are, and then we will see the qualifications. But this point, let's first understand this point, which this verse is making. Akhila bandha muktaye. Bandha is bondage. Akhila, all kinds of Akhila bandha muktaye. It can free us from that. Urukramasya akhila bandha muktaye. Now, to understand this a little more closely in our day-to-day life, right, and see what is the context of this, because this verse will only make sense when we realize or when we internalize this fact that we are bonded in this material world. Not a new thing, but a thing which always is elusive, which we always forget. We always think we are free. We always think that there is no bondage. There is nothing which is binding us. I'm free in this material world. I can live. I can do things as I wish, as per my desire. And as long as I want, I can live freely. But very little this concept that we are never free in this material world dawns within us. So that is why Akhila Bandha Muktaye is a very powerful thing. Now, how do we understand this, that we are never free? There are various ways, actually, Prabhupada explains this, and it's such an important thing to know. Because if we know this, then we will pay attention to this. If we understand our precarious position in this material world, we will pay attention. Otherwise, our attention goes in all kinds of different things. Unfortunately, the attracting power of Maya is so strong that it captures our attention. And when the attention is captured, that's why in that verse, in the purport, Prabhupada is writing, for lifetime after lifetime, committing sinful activities, a person is bonded in this material world. To understand this, the first thing that one has to know or one has to understand is that we are not this body. This is a field which is given to us. It's called a kshetra. And there is a kshetragya, a knower of this kshetra. Like we say, the word kshetragya, to understand this, that I'm the knower of my body, right? We are all individual living entities. And we are all known as kshetragya as per Bhagavad Gita. So I know this is my body, this is my finger, this is my hair, this is my leg. So the gya, the word gya means one who knows. So I know, you know about your body, I know about my body. Therefore, we are all called kshetragyas. Kshetragya means one who knows about this field of activities. And every one of us, we have been awarded a certain type of field of activities for sense enjoyment. We want a certain type of body, a certain type of sense enjoyment, and Krishna gives us this facility through the agency of material nature. And this is very, very important thing to know. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Prakritehe kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasaha. He is awarding this, he is giving this through the agent of material energy. This body is a field of activities. This is not what it is. It is just given to us, and I'm a knower of this field of activities who live within this. Actually, we are all, to act in this field of activities, we are all dependent on the Supreme Lord. I want something, Krishna gives us through the material agent. At the same time, very mercifully, the Lord accompanies us as a friend. And if you remember that beautiful illustration of Bhagavad Gita, of the two birds, which is there in the same trees, it's a very powerful reminder to us as to what is the position of the Lord in with respect to us. So this is a Shruti mantra which says Dva Suparna Sayujya Sakhaya Samanam Briksham Parisaswajate Tayor Anyaha Pipalam Swadu Ati Anashnan Anyo Vichakshati. So there is this Jivatma, knower of the field, Kshetragya, and then there is the super soul who is also present, accompanying us in this field of activity. Both the living, there is both the soul and super soul, they're sitting on the same tree. This body is supposed to be the tree, and the heart is supposed to be the nest. And in the nest, there are two birds. Similarly, there is one bird, the living entity, the individual, and the super soul, both. Interesting thing is the bird is busy eating those fruits of the trees, and the other bird is simply observing, witnessing. Bhagavad Gita uses these two adjectives for super soul, Anumanta, Upadrashta. Both the words are very powerful, Anumanta and Upadrashta. Anumanta means giving order, just like suppose a child is desperately crying for something, he wants it, but he is dependent on his father. Only when the father sanctions, like he keeps telling father, I want this, father, I want this, and the father says, no, you don't take it. But if he repeatedly insists, say, I want to touch fire, I shall touch the fire. Father says, no, don't touch it. But he's insisting and crying. Then the father says, okay, all right, you go and touch. Similarly, we create our own fortune and misfortune. The father actually wants us to do something else, but we want to do something else against the wish of the father. Similarly, Krishna wants that every one of us should surrender unto him and work according to his direction. But we want to do against his will. Therefore, we create our fortune and misfortune. That is the way. So that is why there are different kinds of body, and each one is acting in a different way. Different way means why they are working in different way, why it is not the same. If the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Paramatma, is the same, and he is there in each and every body, we are saying, Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Hridyasya Arjuna Tishtanti, then why one is acting different from another body, from the other person? Now, this is also important to know. So one is acting different. This is the action of the individual soul. The super soul is there simply sanctioning, all right, you do like this. Because you are insisting, he is just sanctioning. Okay, you do like this. But he doesn't interfere, and he appears to be, the souls are acting differently, and we can see this, by the example, in this material world, we see, if somebody asks, what is the proof? The proof is that somebody is acting like a dog, somebody is acting like a hog, one is acting like a demigod, like Indra and Chandra and Varuna. So there are so many differences. And this differences is there because we are associating with different modes. Karanam guna sangasya. So the soul is desiring, soul is associating with different modes, and Paramatma is sanctioning. Prabhupada gives a very beautiful example to illustrate this point of super soul who is present in our heart as that of a magistrate or a judge who's giving different judgment, because the criminals or the complainers, they are different, and they come, somebody is getting awarded, somebody is getting punished. It is not that the magistrate is partial to someone and he's having some grudge against someone. It is not like that. The magistrate is impartial. He's just giving his judgment based on the activity performed by a man. So this is a very important point to remember, and that's what Bhagavatam is talking about. Akhila Bandha Muktaye. This example, this particular point is illustrated in many points, but at many places. But in this purport, Prabhupada is writing thus: the attracted living entities are more and more entangled in material bondage without hope of liberation for thousands and thousands of generations. You see, what happens is, unfortunately, the living entities has one control where he wants to put his attention on. That attention is the property of the soul proper. If that attention is not put in Krishna or Krishna's activities or understanding one's position, knowing who we are, like Bhagavad Gita says, Mame Vamso Jiva Loka Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. We are eternally part and parcel of the Lord. We have got nothing to do with this material world. But because our attention is being captured by the material world, by this material energy, we think, Aham Mameti, I am this body and this is mine. And there are so many literatures. Literatures is actually not just literally, some magazines. Of course they are. Because Prabhupada writes, the purport starts with that, everybody has an instinct to know, to read something unknowable. And there is a pleasure in that. It is not just restricted to that. It could be any such thing in this material world which takes our attention, which not just takes it, it captures our attention. And then we get bound by this, which we don't realize from lifetime after lifetime. Upward, actually, the sentence is very, very hard hitting, where it is mentioned. Thus, these literatures, although worthless in the true sense of the term, are variously decorated to attract the attention of the less intelligent men. Thus, the attracted living entities are more and more entangled in material bondage without hope of liberation for thousands and thousands of generations. Although worthless in the true sense of the term, are variously decorated to attract the attention of the less intelligent men. The less intelligent men can easily get attracted to such literature, such philosophy, such thoughts, such desires to enjoy this material world without realizing the repercussion of being bonded by this material energy and accepting another body. Because the books, the thoughts that we associate with produces those kind of desires. I want to enjoy in this particular way. I want to enjoy in this particular another way. So all these desires which we produce, which we generate, are all related to our body, are all related to our bodily expansions. With them, I want to enjoy. And that becomes the cause of bondage. So that is why here it is mentioned, that Akhila Bandha Muktaya. And that is why it is so important to know this Bhagavatam. It is so important to follow these instructions. It is so important to apply them. Shrinvanti, Gayanti, Grinanti. Apply them in our lives. Not just here in one class and see, okay, this is so good, so nice. And then after the class is over, we go back to our lives without applying anything in our life, without changing anything and continuing to live. Actually, that is not the right way. The scriptures are meant to bring revolution if we are applying them, if we understand our precarious position in this material world and see that there is a way out. And the acharyas like Vedavyas and Narad Muni, who is a pure devotee, they can detect it, and they're telling that you do this so that it will be beneficial for all the Janatagha, for all the sinful people in this material world. They can get benefited. That is why we need to pay attention. The first purport, the first paragraph of the purport actually ends with this sentence: the fallen souls are very eager to receive novel informations every day, and the transcendentalists like Vyasadeva or Narad can supply such eager people in general with unlimited news from the spiritual world. Now you see, in India now there is this corona, this thing is going on, and people are all scared, anxious, nervous. Somebody's relative is affected, somebody's own family members are affected, and in those kind of situations, even people are not able to do their devotional service. They are panicking, or they don't really know how to face it or what to do. Even though we have seen, but somehow when those things happen in our own lives, it's actually the knowledge of Srimad Bhagavatam is not meant to just theoretically or intellectually understand and appreciate. No, these are all knowledges which are given to apply us in our own lives. What if tomorrow I am also suffering from corona, or anybody who's our near and dear one is suffering? And what if, unfortunately, that person meets with death? How do we take it? How do we see this? How do we see this from the viewpoint of Shastras? Now, interestingly, if you see Bhagavad Gita, actually very nicely talks about these things, and we don't we don't really remember this when it comes to our own lives, and we don't apply them. But in very nicely, it is given in the second chapter. There is a verse, 20th verse of second chapter. It says, "Najayate mriyate va kadachin, nayam bhutva bhavita va na bhuyah, ajo nitya sasvato ayam purano, na hanyate hanyamane sarire." Na jayate mriyate va kadachin. There is actually no birth and death for the soul. For the soul, there is no birth and death. Na jayate mriyate va kadachin. That includes all of us. So we never have a birth, we never have a death. But we accept this body, nor having once been done, nor having once been, does he ever cease to be. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, undying, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. It's actually the body which perishes. For the soul, there is no birth, there is no death. Ajo, Nitya, Saswato, Ayam Purano, Nahanyate Hanyamane Sarire. Where is the question of death? What is the fear of death? It is lack of knowledge. It's our lack of knowing who we are in respect to Krishna, that we are accepting this body and thinking we are miserable, or we are going through some sufferings. Because we really don't know, and we don't understand, and we don't have complete faith and conviction in these words of the scriptures. Actually, we say we are depending on Krishna just theoretically. There is no, in true sense, if we are dependent on Krishna, because Krishna says, Sarva Dharman Parityajya, I will have no fear. Death is going to happen to this body, but my soul, which is eternal, will continue to exist and will make progress, will come out of the cycle of bondage if I am following the instructions given in the scriptures. I need to have complete faith and conviction in that. We have strong conviction in any material things, actually. The allurements are so tempting and so inviting that we fall for it. Like a karmi, he has tremendous faith and conviction in his own money, in his own resources, in his own family members. But a devotee should have firm faith in the protection of the Lord and understand his position. Ajo Nitya Sasvato Ayam Purana. There's a very interesting story which Prabhupada mentions once in one of the lectures. There was a woodcutter, and this woodcutter used to cut wood for his livelihood. So, but because of his family conditions, he was, even though he was very old and he was not very capable, still he had to continue doing this because there was no support from his family members. So he maybe, he was a octogenarian, like he was 80 plus, and he was still cutting those wood, and he'll carry those cut wood on his head. He'll go to the forest and he'll cut those and he'll go. So once while, he was doing this, he got so tired and so exhausted, fed up, that, underneath a tree, he said, "Oh, death, even, oh, cruel death, even you don't have any mercy on me. Why don't you come and take me? Why are you allowing me to go through the sufferings?" And just, that whatever he was carrying on his head, just threw it underneath the tree and just fell down, just to relax. Lo and behold, that prayer or that lamentation, that saying of that man was heard by Yamaraj. And Yamaraj appeared there. He wanted to play a practical joke with him. He said, "Well, you said, I don't remember you. I'm here. Let's come. Let's go." So he said, No. Actually, I was just telling you. I didn't really mean it. It was a little tiring. I've been working hard, and I'm very happy to see you, Yamaraj. If you're really, so kind that you have appeared in front of me, why didn't you put that, basket on top of my head? So the story actually, Prabhupada illustrates, tells the story that we don't mind, carrying this burden lifetime after lifetime, but we don't accept that we're going to die one day. We have to leave this body. And we live with this expectation that we're going to live eternally, but we don't want to come out of this bondage, the burden of carrying this load. That is why this is called Akhila Bandha Muktaye, that liberation from this repeated cycle of birth and death, from the burden of accepting another body, the embarrassment of going through the pain of going through birth and death, getting into the mother's womb and then again dying, can come out, can happen if we follow the instructions of Srimad Bhagavatam. Just follow. It is not so difficult. It is so. That is why Narad Muni is telling, please do this. Don't do it in an indirect way. Tell it repeatedly. Let people hear. Let people understand this, so that their attention will be captured. Unless the attention is there, unless somebody does it genuinely. Actually, if some of us we follow just because if we don't follow, then probably people will say, hey, look, that guy is not even chanting properly. He's not doing this thing. So better, than hearing such kind of things, let's follow it. But really that conviction that the Nama, the holy name is not different from the Lord, or Srimad Bhagavatam is an incarnation of Krishna. When I hear, it is purifying my impure lives. It's purifying my impious lives, purifying of me of all my contaminations. That conviction is required. And when that conviction comes, then the activities performed are different. We don't perform just for the sake of doing it. It becomes more lovingly, with more devotedly, and those activities transform our lives completely. And here in the next few verses, okay, I just wanted to talk about this one thing also related to what we were discussing about Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada. He used to publish a magazine called The Harmonist or Satyan Toshani. He also used to have a daily newspaper called Nadia Prakas. I could not find an image of that, but I just thought, the Harmonist also is a good enough illustration. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was once asked by a reporter, do you have so much spiritual content that you're going to publish in newspaper every day? Where are you going to get this content for this? Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur responded to that reporter saying that, in this entire universe, which is anyway tiny compared to, in this entire planet, which is tiny compared to the universe, and there are so many universes, but even assuming that, in this planet, there is one country called India, and there is one city called Calcutta, which is like a dot in that planet. And that planet is a dot in the universe, and that universe is a dot in the gigantic scheme of things. There are so many millions of universes floating. That city, Calcutta, can have so many daily newspapers, and they talk about something which is rubbish day after day, which doesn't bring any revolution. What to speak of the spiritual world, which is 3/4 of the creation, where everything is so dynamic and fresh? Why can't we have daily newspaper? So these are the convictions of the spirit of our acharyas. This is not some hyperbole or exaggeration of anything. These are realities. The exchange of rasas with the Lord is ever fresh, nava yauvanam, and it is so relishable. If we only pay our attention to this, we can also experience that. We can relish that. And that relish can bring so much joy in our life. Otherwise, this boring, monotonous, burdensome load that we are carrying on our head, thinking that this is what it is. This is how I can, if I carry and if I go sell, then only I'll be happy. It's a myth. And this myth has been there ever since, we have accepted our, body from not just this life, from many, many lifetimes. And we are continuing this in this life also. That is why the acharyas urge, please take shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam. It's like a Puranarko adhunoditaha. It's like a sun which has arisen. Today we had a beautiful alankara here. It's called Suryendu. If I remember it correctly, the alankara. It's, when the sun is rising, there is no question of darkness. Darkness cannot remain when the sun has risen. That's what exactly is Krishna Surya Sama Maya Hoy Andhakar, Jaha Krishna Nahi Tara Maya Radhikar. So Krishna or Srimad Bhagavatam, Purana Arko Adhunodita is the same, the brilliant sun. It can remove all the darkness from our sinful lives, provided we take shelter of that sun. We come to that sunshine. If we remain in that darkness always, then we can never take advantage of Srimad Bhagavatam. Let's see some more points and then we'll close. How much, what is the time, Panduranga? Your local time?
9 a.m.
9 a.m. Okay, I'll close in 5 minutes. Actually, these verses have to be relished. As I said, if you, these things have to be understood and has to be relished. Let's see some of the words that Prabhupada has used in this verse. If you pay attention to the other verses, other words which are used here, Amoghadrik, Mogha, actually these words, our acharyas, like previous acharyas also have given wonderful commentaries to know them. Mogha means sins. So if our lives are filled with sinful activities, then the vision is blurred. Actually, the desire to enjoy this material world is a deep-rooted desire. It's a strong desire. Our devotional service, if it is weak, if it is done without conviction, if it is done mechanically, if it is done without really understanding it, actually we cannot separate us from the attraction of Maya. Even though we've been doing some devotional activity, it is not enough. So, and there is none of us who can say that, I have never committed any sins in my life. We all have committed and we continue to commit. Sin doesn't mean something very grossly wrong. Sin means forgetfulness of Krishna and doing something independently, trying to enjoy. Amoghadrik, that's why the vision becomes blurred. The clarity of vision is missed. A person lacks that. So only when somebody is following at least the 4 regulative principles, they are basic minimum, basic. If those 4 regulative principles are, that's why, when we take this vow of initiation, the things that we chant is, I'll follow this 4 regulative principles and chant 16 rounds minimum. That 4 regulative principles gives us that, at least that clarity of vision. There also, if we don't follow or we are finding it difficult, the vision again gets blurred. We get again the materialistic enjoyment, the materialistic pursuit of life. Those desires become very strong, and it is inseparable. It is not a. That is why Daivi Yesha Guramai Maumaya. It's a very strong force. So Amoghadrik has to be, the vision has to be clear, free from all the sinful activities. Stop doing all the sins. Then Suchishrava. Yes, these words are so important. Suchishrava. Suchi is pure. Shrava is hearing. Hearing process has to be pure. If somebody wants to remember, relish Krishna's pastimes, these are prerequisites. These are qualifications required. Amoghadrik and Suchishrava. Actually, Suchishrava, Prabhupada in the lecture of this verse, he says that a person can become Suchishrava, or he has inculcated that by introducing this chanting of 16 rounds daily. 16 rounds of chanting will give us that devotion if we do it properly, without offense, hear attentively. If we do that, the chanting, then it gives that devotion. So one is the vision, the other one is the knowledge which is required. So the revelation or the purity comes by following the 4 regulative principles, by becoming Amoghadrik, and the devotion, Suchishrava, by chanting 16 rounds of Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Then comes the recollection and remembrance, which comes by Satyarato and Dhritavrataha. If you remember the verse that we were chanting during Kartik month, what is that? Ichadve Samutyana in the next verse. Anybody remembers? Bhajante Mam Dridhabrata. Eshante, yeah. Eshanto Antagatam Papam Jananam Punya Karmana. Te Dvanda Moha Nirmukta Bhajante Mam Dridhabrata. Actually, our devotional life has to be more, there is a determination required. There is a sense of urgency. There is a sense of the determination is so important to advance. This keeps coming in different ways. Vyavasayatmika buddhir ekeha kurunandana bahusakhahi anantas buddhayo abhyavesaina. Vyavasayatmika buddhi, resolute determination, resolute purpose is required. What happens for us is there is a slackness which comes when there is lack of devotee association, when there is more association with materialistic thoughts, materialistic viewpoints, our own mind. It gives justification for not doing. Not doing once, not doing twice, not doing thrice becomes a habit. So the word used here is Dhritavrataha. Our intelligence should be fixed. If intelligence is not fixed in this, if sufficient contemplation is not happening, if we don't remember this properly, we will not take it seriously. A little this thing, provocation, a little agitation, a little disturbance, a little reversal in life, and we stop doing our devotional activities. The first thing that we do that. This is our the most important thing in our life is this. And we somehow ignore this, or we forget about it. And we get trapped by our attention gets trapped by this material alluring energy. And then the Satyarato, a mind has to be attached. Mind should be Satyarataha. It has to be fixed in this absolute truth. So actually Prabhupada says this recollection and remembrance can come if we have this Satyarata and Dhritavrata. We can get to know about this, the most confidential knowledge of the Lord, which is infinite, which is impossible to receive by any other means. There's no other way other than devotional service. And it has to be revealed by the Lord. It has to be revealed by itself. You cannot, acquire it by your own this thing. It has to be revealed, provided we are rightly fixed. We are Amoghadrik, we are Suchishrava, or we are Satyarato and Dhritavrata. Otherwise, in this material world, where the energy of the Lord in the form of external energy, which is acting, which is Lord's energy, which is so bewildering. It's a bewildering energy and very powerful. What is our own strength? There's no strength. So unless we take up to this process of devotion seriously, take to this process of the shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam, the holy names of Lord, and hold them dear with determination, and we can cross over this, come out of this. The word used there is Akhila Bandha Muktai. We can get liberation from all kinds of bondage. So I'll stop here and see if you have any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Just, Prabhuji, I want to show my gratitude that how much confined knowledge you have provided us. So I'm very proud of to be the part of this, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
The gratitude should be given to Srila Prabhupada. Actually, we are just trying to share what Prabhupada has given. Actually, Acharyas like Prabhupada come who know exactly based on the time, place, and circumstances what exactly is our need. This knowledge might be present, and there are Acharyas who have given commentaries, but how do we apply it in our own lives? That's the beauty. That's the Acharya knows exactly what we can do, what we cannot, what is relevant for us, and they share their knowledge. So important it is for us to, spend time with Srimad Bhagavatam, and that's why Prabhupada has made it mandatory and has written painstakingly the English translations. It can really bring revolution.
Yes, Prabhu.
Any other thoughts, questions, reflections? It's a very different weather here. I don't know what's the situation there, but it's quite hot and humid. Good to see you, Marco. And sweating. Actually, I sweat anyway. I sweat, but I sweat in this kind of environment profusely. So, but also at the same time, there are so wonderful celebrations which are happening. Even if you are not able to join physically, but if you see them, they can transpose us to a different world altogether. Like morning, there was a Surya Prabha Bahana, and there were two songs which were sung. Vibhavari Sesa Aloka Prabha, Nidra Chadi Utha Jiva, and Vrindavana Ramya Sthan. These things, these Vaishnava poets have given the essence of our philosophy so wonderfully in these songs. And just by listening, just by hearing, just by seeing, the heart gets cleansed and gets filled with some transcendental joy. And please hear today's lecture by Madhupandit Prabhu. He spoke from a verse from 11th canto, which says how deities should be installed. There should be festivals around those deities, and temples should be built so that people can come and participate and they can take advantage of this, and how they are so important in our lives. So these are all things we should take seriously. I'm sure you all are trying, but what we lack is the sincerity and the faith in this whole process. And that comes by the mercy of previous acharyas and by association of devotees. And when that is there, irrespective of where you are, what kind of situations you are going through, your consciousness will be pure, will be unaffected by that. All right, so I think I can hear some Vedanga and Kathal sound. We go for Mahotsav celebration now. Good to see all of you, and we will meet again. So thank you all for joining. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jagat Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanand.
Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.